Great. We've got a large number of the people will be jumping straight in from the last session on youth talks. So we've had around 100 plus there, looking at this global youth consultation. And so ideally we'll be opening up and everybody will be joining onto the Zoom. And so be encouraging them as well to share via the chat. And so feel free to rebound back on any of their points. Okay, and I believe actually we're now all in the main room. So welcome everybody. Hopefully you actually heard what I just said because that'd be useful for you. Well, before we go live, and Mika will mention that to us, we do have a stream that will be being filmed for this session so that everybody can access it afterwards immediately. And so that's why we'll have a little bit of a countdown before we get started. And we're already ready to go. Fantastic. So with all that being said, welcome everybody to this session today on building a Planetizen University from wherever you're calling in the world. It's such a pleasure to have you with us here today. I'm Ed Stevenette, your host. As a student at Learning Planet Institute, now a member of the staff in the Learning Planet Alliance team, bringing together organizations around the world uniting to transform education, and notably working with an incredible community of young people who are with us over this week of the festival and much more as well. I'm just going to check the chat if there's anything for me. Fantastic. Super. So I think we will get started firstly by thanking an amazing group community of contributors. Oh, here we go. Oh, we're still live. We're still in live with Marine. So we'll start. We're good? Okay, fantastic. So I want to thank a collection of amazing people who have joined us on this journey that started a few months back in New York at the UN General Assembly, exploring what a Planetizen University might look like. Since then, we've had some amazing conversations along the way, taking place at the UNESCO Youth Forum, at our base here at Learning Planet Institute, Centre for Learning Innovation Research around education, building the Learning Society in Paris, and with the global community of the Learning Planet Alliance. And so many of the partners who've joined the conversation today have been part of this journey. And so it's really great to have them sharing some of their words in the session today. You'll note that there are a large number of contributors if you saw the event page. So this isn't the conventional roundtable, and it will be a real opportunity to open up a conversation between many different people. We ask that the chat is going to be alive, it's going to be kicking, there's going to be a huge amount going on there. So engage, add your ideas, add your links, add your suggestions. Particularly questions for the contributors that you'll see on the event page that Raven can put in the chat as well. And notably, we're joined by some amazing participants of the Planetizen University, the inaugural Youth University Design Challenge that's been taking place over the last couple of months. 70 incredible submissions from 40 countries worldwide. And it's a real pleasure to announce and celebrate also the 3 winners of that competition today who will be presenting their work, but also all of the community that took part in this first design challenge. So with all that being said, a lot to get through today. I'd love to pass to Francois, the co-founder and Chief Exploration Officer of Learning Planet Institute, to share a little bit more about the context for this topic of Planetizen University. Over to you, Francois.
So hi to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Ed, for this wonderful intro. Definitely, the idea of Planetizen University has to be co-designed by youth. That's the #1 principle. We also want this Planetizen University to be serving the planet, and a planetizen being a citizen of the planet, aware of the planetary boundaries, and wishing for a better future for all. The planetizenship idea is based on the citizenship idea, but is extended because it tries to go beyond the limitation historically and geographically of citizenship. As you might know, citizenship was born around city walls, and it was only men in arms defending city walls. So clearly slaves were never citizens, women were not citizens, children were not citizens, migrants were not citizens, and the city walls have separated humans from nature. So citizenship has not been an inclusive concept. So what we are trying to do is to build a truly inclusive and ecological concept, and hence the idea of planetizenship. But so far, universities are not exactly delivering what students want. We just heard from youth talk, what the students want to learn, and clearly what is on offer at the moment is not fulfilling the needs of the new generations. And that's partly because universities are both amazing institutions in terms of being place where youth is and where learning and research is happening, but they are evolving under lots of constraints. Geographical constraints, political constraints, financial constraints, academic constraints, that makes them somewhat unable to evolve as fast as the world is, and therefore most universities in the world are not offering the best possible opportunities to their students in terms of understanding the planetary crisis in which we are and offering them the opportunity to rise to the challenges of our time by learning to cooperate and develop the skills that they need to be resilient and to basically learn to care for self, others, and the planet, which is the motto of our Learning Planet community. And so we are trying to redesign university with youth, for youth. And the idea is that this university at the planetary level can be co-designed by students for students, but it should be also supported by the best possible partners. So we are lucky in this, and we'll hear Stefania Giannini in a minute. She's the ADG of UNESCO, and she has the will that UNESCO supports this. And the reason is that, first because she's a very engaged woman, very much like Audrey, Director General of UNESCO, but also because the Secretary General of the UN is very committed to the very project that we are discussing here. Actually, 2 years ago, in September at UN General Assembly, we were there for the Transforming Education Summit, and there was an amazing work done by youth all over the world and a youth declaration was issued for what youth want to the future of education. And basically, they want to be heard on what they need, and they want to be part of the transformation of education, and they want to be educated around sustainability issues. They want to be educated on how to cooperate and to rise to this challenge. They want educators that are well funded and well trained as well. So when the UN Secretary General received this youth declaration, he said something very important. He said there is basically 4 ways to interact with youth for the UN or for any other institution. And he said, unfortunately, for too long, the first thing that was done is to ignore youth. Then the second thing that was done is to pretend to listen to youth. And that's clearly not acceptable. The third thing that can be done is have a dialogue between institutions and the youth. But he said, we are not doing this very well, even though he was doing it, and rather well, I have to say. But he said the fourth is to be invented, and that's co-construct the future with youth. And this need of co-constructing the future with youth is absolutely essential. And so the Planetizen University should obviously be a place that is co-constructed with youth, and it should be a place from which students are invited to co-construct many other institutions, both local and planetary institutions, planetizen institutions. And so that's certainly something that we care about, because currently we have global crises that are linked to what's called a tragedy of the common, the fact that we are overexploiting natural resource, that we are transforming our climate, that we are destroying biodiversity. So those are the natural resources. But we're also overexploiting the intellectual resource, because some people are trying to privatize the knowledge commons, for instance, and are challenging, you know, the very fundamental concept of democracy and freedom. But there is also digital resource now. Wikipedia is a good example. The web is itself a digital resource. But some people are privatizing all of this as well. So we need to protect those commons, and we need a university that is there to nurture the commons, where the students can learn about the commons. They can learn about the values, and we've heard from youth talks that, you know, youth want to learn values. Whereas at the moment, what universities provide students with is at best knowledge, sometimes skills, but they are not invited to reflect on their ethics and serving their community. And in fact, it's just the opposite. What has been shown is that on average, the level of ethics diminish with the numbers of years in an engineering school, the number of empathy diminish with the numbers of years in a medical school, and the ability to cooperate diminish with numbers of years in a business school. So clearly, at the moment, ethics is not at the center of most we like to create and offer to the world and to their generation.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Francois. I think what we'll do just now is pass the floor to Stefania, Stefania Giannini, the ADG for UNESCO for Education, who will be showing a little bit more on their engagements and commitment as well to this emergent project. So being asked to share as well from my screen, which I'll do so.
I wish to congratulate all participants of Building a Planetizen University Design Challenge, which was launched last year, and we received the Learning Planet Institute very much supported and accompanied by UNESCO in this process. A lot of interesting, inspiring ideas. We count on the power of your imagination to really not only dream, but actually concretize the idea of the university of the future. University is the place where, based on research, transmission of knowledge, innovation, we can and we must reshape the future. We must reshape the world we need when it comes to climate change, when it comes to democracy, tolerance, and building on the values that are actually UNESCO's values, building peace. And as you maybe know, the Constitution of UNESCO clearly said many years ago, 78 years ago, that as the war actually starts in women and men's mind, we have to build a defense for peace in women and men's mind. And that's the time really to mobilize for that. Thank you so much, and we are very much keen to have even more and more inspiring ideas in the months and years to come.
Thank you very much, Stefania and the team at UNESCO who've been joining us on this journey. And I think it is actually a perfect segue into sharing really the central part of this session today, which is looking at these ideas created and proposed by young people, students around the world for learning programs towards engaged, flourishing, and sustainable universities. Just to give you a quick context for how this emerged, at our first session, co-design session on Planetizen University at the UN General Assembly in September, we shared and started looking at what would we see in the university of our dreams. So who would we be with? What would be the ages in the group? Where might we be? Might we be online, offline? What might be the core themes that are emerging as well? And particularly these themes around notably well-being, around equity and engagement of the university, and around the place of the university on planetary health and sustainability were very much front and center. In the following month, we sat down, as we often do at Learning Planet, with our wonderful group of youth fellows, so over 500 now around the world, but with our core council and members that were with us in New York, and said, well, what can we do now to really build build on what Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General for the UN, had said on co-constructing with youth. And one of the key points and suggestions that came up is, well, let's give a space to contribute ideas, and let's see how we can recognize these ideas and mentor and build these ideas up. And so this led quickly into the proposition and design of the first Planetizen University Youth Design Challenge, which was gathering submissions around the world from students at partner universities already in the Alliance, from youth fellows, and from new friends and colleagues who have joined along the way and have really entered into this initiative of bringing their students on board in imagining new forms of higher education. And so having a very quick, for this time round, launch of submissions in December, we had a fantastic 200 sign up from 40 plus countries around the world. In the end, we had 70 final submissions that were shared with an international jury, many of which are joining us here today and speaking with us from across the world, but not just that, also from across subjects connected to higher education transformation, whether leaders in the university itself, social entrepreneurs, leaders of education networks, and particularly those building and leading youth movements. So we've had a fantastic jury of 10 join us for this time round. And it's been, I'm sure they'll concur, a really challenging process because we were really blown away by the quality of what has been suggested by the students worldwide. And Raven, I'm sure we'll put into the chat just the link so that you can explore at your own pace some of these programs over the session and moving forward. And really to get down to a top 20 of finalists was already extremely difficult. Everyone really put in some real quality and real effort into these submissions. But then to get down to a top 3 laureates was really even harder. But we managed to do so by late Monday evening, and it is a pleasure to welcome the 3 laureates that we have here today, who will be sharing a little bit more about their projects, about their learning program, which Raven will also put the link into the chat so that you can explore as well. And first and foremost, I'm going to pass on to our 3rd place in the challenge, which is Jay Liu, calling from Hong Kong, and he'll be able to share a little bit more on his learning program around working through conflict and building peace. So Jay, over to you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Edward. Could I have the perms to screen share, please?
If Jay, if you just put, we'll just put the link to your project page into the chat, and so you can just share yourself verbally, and then we'll be able to look at it in our own pace on our space.
All right, sure. I made a Google Slides presentation though, so I'll stick that link in the chat sometime after. All right. Okay. So, all right. Hi, everyone. I'm very honored to be speaking here for the inaugural Planetizen University Youth Design Challenge. And today I'll be introducing my program, which, if you can look in the link in the chat, it's called Ad Bonum Fidem. And just a little bit about me to begin with. I'm Jeroo Liu, or Jay, and I'm a 16-year-old student based in Hong Kong. In my spare time, I like to study logic, debate, and also play the ancient board game of Go. And in the future, I'd like to study the social sciences. So why did I design this program? The conventional perception of an argument could be, say, a quarrel in a drama series or a televised political debate. But both can often stray far from what the word argument originally meant, which is to essentially prove and make clear. And that's what I hope to teach Planetizens through my program, which is the art of arguing well, not only by strengthening my points, but also by promoting a cooperative mindset to solve these problems together, whether they're interpersonal or concerning the future of our planet. And the name of my program sort of alludes to the ad hominem fallacy, which means to appeal to the person. So ad bonum fidem, which is Latin for appeal to good faith, embodies what I believe the basis of any argument should be, and in turn also responds to the themes of engaging and flourishing universities. So my program entirely revolves around what I named the 3 Ps framework: problem, person, presentation. So it involves this 3-peated question asking process that aims to make the most out of an argument and avoid other, say, unnecessary ones. So first, all arguments have to start with a problem, right? So a source of dispute that should be pinpointed before anything's argued. By establishing this shared context between the arguers, to begin with, of course, you effectively avoid the misunderstandings and get to focus on what the specific problem is. And then comes the people aspect, which is when you should consider what the stakeholders of the situation are. So who are they? What are their goals? And by recognizing these different perspectives, it aids in the process of devising a well-rounded solution, which in turn, well, finally you present in the presentation point sector. You should think of addressing the central problem while also accounting for each stakeholder's position and viewpoint. It's also helpful to refer back to these interlinked processes throughout any argument, because whether people, problem, or presentation alike, they'll be constantly evolving. So to sum all that up, the 3 Ps framework should provide a structured approach to any argument, debate match, or conference meeting alike. And lastly, the structure of my program. So ad bonum fidem will be open to all Planetizens worldwide, middle school or older. All they should need is an internet connection. It will start with a series of info sessions on the 3 Ps framework, which will be conducted online, followed by skill application sessions, which could include mock daily life scenarios where Planetizens are assigned different characters who have to resolve a dispute, and also debates like very similar to Model United Nations conferences, where Planetizens work together to solve, for instance, social, environmental, and economic issues, global context. And these can be conducted online over calls or also in in-person events, with the Learning Planet Festival being an especially great opportunity. That being said, thanks for listening to my presentation.
Thank
you.
So much.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Jay. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Do give any round of applause. I see 8, 9, 10 rounds of applause emojis on the in the chat. That is wonderful. I'll just pass first to a couple of our jury members. So Pavel, you reviewed Jay's application, and I'd love to hear from you, given the connection as well, naturally, to beast building as well. So Pavel, what do you think?
Well, congratulations, Jay. This application certainly stood out for me when I was ranking the proposals from different candidates. And very briefly, what excited me, I feel like indeed the art of good debate is what we can call constructive conflict that leads to a dialogue that brings conflict into resolution, into productive solution, is one of the key skills that Planetizens need to master. And when I was reading the proposal of Jay, I was also thinking about another. He uses this Latin expression ad bonum fidem, and I remember the other really beautiful motto, which is called sapere aude, which is dare to know. So we really need to bring this spirit, and it was used first by Horace 2000 years ago, and then brought again by Kant, who was talking about sapere aude as the key spirit of enlightenment. And I think when we talk about how universities can reinvent themselves, we really need to bring that motto to the front. We really need to dare to know, and daring to know requires how we honestly go into argument with each other and learn to come out of this argument with productive solutions. So I think Jay is doing really good work in creating a program that will help Planetizens to learn it.
Thank you, Pavel.
Thank you so much.
Osaretin. Yeah, go for it.
Thank you, Ed. And I think I'm basically going to echo most of the things that Pavel has said. And congratulations, Jay. What really stood out to me with your presentation was the simplicity of your presentation. It was obvious that you were passionate about what it is that you were talking about. And when one is passionate about something, one has to be able to explain it so that a novice or a child can understand it. And I thought that that was what you did. You simply identified a problem and you simply gave a solution. And it was a solution that we thought resonated with us. And it was a solution that I thought was needed. I mean, if you've spoken to a lot of people today, you will see that you have not proposed a way to win an argument. You have not proposed a way to sound smarter. You have only proposed a way to solve basic human communication problems. I need us to understand, even though we don't always agree, we need to understand where we both are coming from. And I thought you did an excellent job of communicating that. And I look forward to the world being a better place, having learned the contents that you are providing. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, huge congratulations, Jay, from us all. And as it's a nice segue, actually, because directly after this session, I think Pavel put into the chat too, there'll be a session looking in the mood for peaceful futures. And I think there'll be this link and your proposition will be taken into that session, I'm sure, as inspiration. So do recommend any of you, if you've got an extra hour or so after this session, then do join on to that as well. With that being said, we now pass on to our second place finalist for the Youth Design Challenge, which is Georgina from the African Leadership University, of whom we had some fantastic, really brilliant propositions also from a number of students. So Georgina will be sharing a little bit more about her program on fixes, engineering for sustainability. So Georgina, over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm Georgina Odero. I worked as an associate engineer, but currently I'm studying business and I have a passion for conservation. So my project stems from my past experience and my current passions. So while working in the engineering field, specifically manufacturing, I witnessed a lot of like harmful effects of manufacturing. There was a lot of poor waste management, resource depletion, and I decided to get a degree in business to find ways to encourage businesses to adopt more sustainable practices that ensure better utilization of resources. So in Africa, most African countries, we import machines and electrical equipments because there are very few manufacturers, and at the same time, there are very few service centers or repair centers that are able to deal with broken or damaged machines. This in turn leads to a lot of electronic waste, as there's very little sustainability and there's shortened lifespan. And as a former engineering student, I realized when I joined the workforce is many graduates don't have the required skills needed to actually work in engineering in terms of how to, the experience working with many of these machines, as well as we don't have a way to share our experiences, share our knowledge to ensure that engineering as a whole, not only in our individual countries, but in the world, has a better standard, or we're able to all have good practices. So my idea, which is Fixers, is an online and offline program where first students from different universities all over the world will join this online platform where they'll be able to share their ideas and learn from each other, especially on things to do with sustainability, circular practices in engineering and whatnot, and the different engineering practices they have in the different countries, so that all students will have the very best and will be able to learn from each other. At the same time, we'll create a network of engineering firms and experienced engineers who will come on board to give these students mentorship and support. They'll have online sessions where they teach them on the different practices currently ongoing all over the world. This is something that we currently lack, because if you want to know about, let's say, what's happening in a certain country, you have to go search. And if you don't know like what to search for, you'll probably not know like what you're supposed to be looking at, or have ideas of what you can work on or what you can implement in your country. So we'll also use these engineering firms and engineers as a way to provide the youth or the young students in this platform direct collaboration with these companies, because if we're able to link them, then they'll get more experience and they'll be able to have more exposure in terms of engineering. And also, if they're able to talk through this platform, the young people will be able to influence some of the practices and policies and what these companies are doing, because as you all know, young people have a voice and like to be heard, and usually have very good ideas that can better whatever we are doing. Then after they have these sessions online, they collaborate, they share ideas, they'll have to go for practical sessions, in that they will have to create local groups in their different countries, towns, communities, where they'll go into the community and teach them on the importance of sustainability in engineering. And then they'll ask them to bring in their damaged, broken machines. And these students will come together, repair these machines at a low cost, which will again go back to the students. At the same time, if they have any difficulties, they will go back to the online platform and ask their fellow students, oh, we are trying to deal with this, we cannot, can you help us? If they are unable to get insight from their fellow students, they can also go to the engineering firms and also ask for further help. Going to practical offline skills with the local community will encourage the students to be more involved in their communities, to be able to work with others well, to be able to create more awareness in their local communities on the importance of sustainability and the general importance of being able to work together. So for now, with the fixers, we are very happy because I have been working with 2 local universities. We're about to launch it in the next couple of months to have our first round of students and see how we can be able to go from there on. And I also hope to use this network of young, talented people. It doesn't have to be engineers, to be able to make this project something that can work not only in Kenya, but all over the world. And I hope to get insight and feedback from this session to be able to better and make sure this project is not like a one-time thing, but something that can sustain itself in the next couple of years or millennia, to ensure that there is always sustainable engineering wherever you go in the world. Thank you very much.
I'm going to give space for a round of applause and emojis as well. Georgina, that was really brilliant, fantastic. Congratulations, and you close on a really important point on support, and indeed this is a core focus of this session today. We're blown away by the quality of these submissions, and it's an open conversation today on how we can build on and take these ideas further forward as well. I'll ask Raven too to post again in the chat the link to the interest form for Planetizen University, and you'll see some of the options that you can choose in there are if you're interested in supporting, mentoring or developing any of these particular projects, so we can get in contact with you as easily as possible. With that being said, it would be great to pass to a couple of the jury members again that had a look at your submission. So I'll start with you yourself, Alysha, from the AIESEC team in Canada and worldwide. Alysha, what did you think? What were your thoughts on this one?
Thanks, Ed. Thank you so much for the presentation, Georgina. I honestly loved reading through your write-up and through your idea. It was super unique and very inspirational to see how you were able to connect the dots with youth upskilling, but then also tying in sustainability and the circular economy. So yeah, I think you clearly explained the need on both ends. So again, like needing those repair centers because they're absent in some communities present, as well as reducing electronic waste and upskilling engineering students. And like I said, I think it was really unique that you were able to kind of kill two birds with one stone, if you will, again, with the upskilling and the circular economy. And I love that you were able to give this as a resource to the community as well through this idea. So I'd love to see your journey after this and how you're able to take this idea forward. But overall, I could definitely see your passion, inspiration, and also tying in some inspiration from your education too, within your write-up and within your idea. So thank you so much for sharing your passion with us. And I'm really excited for your bright future.
Thank you very much, Alysha. And incidentally, you'll see each of you on the point on keeping track of these projects. Each of the project pages include objectives. There's space to add updates too. So Georgina would really encourage you to keep people up to date on the development of the project through there, and we'll certainly be accompanying it as well. Francois, your thoughts on this one, having had a look at it?
Well, first, a big congratulations to Georgina. Obviously, the only thing that is better than reading you, Georgina, is to hearing you. And the only thing that would be even better is to meet you, actually. But so it was really an amazing work that you've done, and you know, we are very impressed. I can only repeat what my colleague just said, but I think you added one more dimension in your writing, which is the notions of right to repair. And I think that's a very important notion. I think that's a notion that can make a big difference for the future. It's basically the right that we should all have to be able to repair and upgrade any machines, any technology that we have. So, you know, it should be the default mode. You know, it shouldn't be that technologies are locked up because it's a waste of resource and it's a source of pollution if we cannot have the right to repair. So I think you've been addressing both, you know, the upskilling of students, giving them essential skills, because the best way to learn many things is to learn by doing. So learn by repairing is certainly one of the best way to learn how does a machine work. But it's also actually a political and environmental issue with this right to repair. And I think it's a fantastic project from the local communities, but also for the global community. As a planet, you know, we need the right to repair if we want to become sustainable. Circular economy is going to be absolutely essential, and I think your work is central for this. So congratulations for bringing together so many dimensions in one project, and the fact that you know, you already have a prototype in 2 universities. I can't wait to see this, you know, scale to the world and offered through the Planetizen University to every student that would want to join this.
Thank you, Francois. Georgina, any final reactions from you from what you've heard?
I'd just like to say thank you so much. And if anyone here would like to join me to be able to move this project from just Kenya, please reach out to me. And any feedback, even if it's after this, I would really appreciate any help and any insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Georgina. And ending on feedback is a gracious point to make too. And it is to be noted, there's lots of great feedback and comments in the chat. And for all of the 70 participants, they each received detailed, personalized written feedback from the jury. So very much thank you to the jury as well for providing that too. And we hope that that can nourish and build each and every one of these projects moving forward as well. Don't hesitate to, for the participants to the challenge that are in this call today, thank you so much for joining. Add your projects into the chat too, share the links, celebrate them as well. And who knows the connections that you can build from the hundreds of servers here in the session today, and those that will be catching up online afterwards as well. And it brings us now to our first place winner, which again, a very difficult one to choose, but it is, we're really glad to announce Pearl Muriel as our winner from South Africa for her project on Indigenous wisdom. And I should just note as well that Pearl is not with us in the session today because she is currently in a period of prayer. She's at a prayer festival in South Africa this afternoon. And so she was simultaneously sorry not to be able to join, but I think it was a real testament to her as well, that she has stayed truthful to her work, to her belief, and will be contemplating right now as we speak. But in the meantime, she was kind enough to send a video that I'll share now, and she'll take us a little bit through her learning program.
Hi everyone, my name is Paul Ariel Perumal. I am a 26-year-old South African-born medical scientist, community weaver, and education activist who aims to co-create, co-design, and collaborate with synergistic organizations for social impact, particularly around the field of transformation education. I entered the Youth Design Challenge because I wholly believe in the vision of the Planetizen University, who invites youth to the roundtable to co-create and co-design learning materials and programs for a more thriving and sustainable society and world. My project submission was entitled IKS for Transformation, which is interweaving Indigenous knowledge systems for a more transformed society. It focuses on resurrecting the lost knowledge and practices of our global Indigenous communities, such as the Maori and the Aborigines, Khoisan, and so forth, through intergenerational and intercultural exchanges. The program seeks to firstly create reconnection and transformation within oneself, before subsequently creating change for global issues by tapping into the power and the practices of the Indigenous community values, beliefs, and ways of life. Apart from this, it aims to include these members of the Indigenous communities back into society, as we see that they are often excluded from our global spaces. Participants who embark on this transformational or transformative journey will go through 4 themes. The first being the transformation of oneself. Second is transformation of learning. The third is transformation of environments. And the fourth is connecting past to the future. Structure of the program would be in a 30, 40, 20, and 10 ratio, meaning that 30% would be the theoretical component whereby we invite guest speakers from these Indigenous communities to create awareness about their practices and their culture. 40% would be the practical component whereby participants delve into doing practical activities and exercises based on what was taught and see how this connects to their own life, which promotes interconnectedness, interbeing, and also self-awareness. The latter 20% would be in the form of community cafes, where participants would interact with other members of the Indigenous communities in a form of intercultural exchange. The remaining 10% would be in an asynchronous form, and this would involve participants connecting and supporting each other in IKS community pods. And here they can also create a personal project based on a value or practice that resonated with them the most. The format would be in an online space and setting, which would allow for multiple participants from different geographical locations and backgrounds. And it can also be restructured and readapted to form regional on-site sessions as well. I think the next steps would be to see how we can collaborate to make this project become a reality. Because it not only reintegrates these Indigenous communities into our global spaces, but also preserves the Indigenous knowledge and uses it as a tool to guide the generations of today to a brighter future. As the saying goes, Vasudeva Kutambaka, meaning the world is one family, and through this project, there is multifaceted ways of interconnectedness and interbeing as well, from past to future and through continents throughout the world. Thank you.
On a lovely smile there. Congratulations to Pearl, and I know that she would appreciate some of the words and thoughts from a couple of our jury members. So Asli, if I could start with you, what resonated in this project for you?
Sure, thank you, Ed. I mean, Pearl is not here, but I'm sure she will watch it, so thank you. Start with that. Thank you for the presentation, for the video, and I very much enjoyed reading it. And I think what made Pearl's project so appealing was in twofolds in my mind. One was how well thought out it was, showing clear sectioning of the flow and the learning experience and what it would aim to achieve. And it also showed great interconnectedness of various parts. So my background is in learning design and curriculum design, so this was naturally a part that I was paying a lot of attention to. And secondly, it had great vision. So creating an environment where intercultural and intergenerational learning takes place with an aim to enable personal transformation and the community transformation was really commendable. And the connections that it was also making with one's well-being to diversifying thought processes and our relationship with nature makes it all very relevant to a whole host of SDG fronts. And often when we evaluate learning programs, we look at what we call a constructive alignment. Basically, does it do what it says on the tin? And this program simply had that. But I suppose by the same token of thought, digging deeper, what impact this will achieve will be quite important, particularly how those going through this transformation will pay forward or become champions of not only change, but carrying out this precious message that they are getting. And one last thought, I think a program like this sort of has a reach beyond high school or higher education student, and it can actually apply to further education or even in the business world or governments. So I think that the wider appeal was quite important as well. But yeah, I think it has so much potential and I hope it gets the backing it needs and the funding it requires to bring it to life.
Thank you, Asli, and really valuable feedback for coming from your perspective on learning design. We'll pass to Sebastian for your thoughts.
Thank you so much, Ed. I also have to say it was a real pleasure to read through the submissions. So many great ideas. I'm quite delighted to see that Pearl's Indigenous Knowledge Systems project has made it to the top of our collective rankings. So Pearl, if you're watching this, also wholehearted congratulations from my side. As the Global Student Forum, we fully agree with the notion that our higher education systems need to be decolonized and need to be indigenized to include more local sensitivities and encompass traditions, cultures, and more critical worldviews, because we are convinced that by incorporating these previously marginalized and excluded voices and pedagogies, we can create a higher education system at large that allows more and more people to think and act critically. And we also all know that traditional Western education has been for centuries quite Eurocentric, neglecting these knowledges and contributions from indigenous cultures, which is specifically important because it is clear that many of these indigenous knowledge systems are deeply rooted in sustainable practices and have a profound connection to the environment. So having that at the center of higher education is also really important in relation to the environmental degradation and climate change crisis that we are facing. And all of that is encompassed in Pearl's proposal, mainstreaming and making indigenous knowledge from across the globe accessible to a broader audience. And we believe that this intergenerational and intercultural exchange concept can really help with bridging the gap, and Pearl said it before in her video, between the past and the future. And I would agree with my fellow jury member that from a personal perspective, having conceptualized and run a lot of capacity building seminars, often learning through trial and error, I like that the program structure is balancing both the theory and the practical activities in a quite innovative and inclusive fashion, catering both for online engagement, but also ensuring that it's open for a broad community by allowing hybrid settings. We as GSF would really be happy to look into working together with Pearl by using our network to enlarge the potential audience and to set up relevant connections that can help with hopefully providing good partnerships to scale this. So congratulations once again to Pearl and all other participants for the really great work. It's been a pleasure being part of this jury. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. And yeah, final congratulations to each of our 3 winners of this challenge, but indeed as well to all of the participants. And our conversation on the challenge does not end there, it only begins, because actually we really wanted to make the ideas that have been produced from this first challenge the center of the conversation today. And we'll be looking at a core question and bringing in a number of different contributors over over the next hour or so, which Raven will kindly put into the chat, on building on these ideas and contributions from those of you that were potentially part of the Youth Talk session just before this one, looking at youth ideas and needs from around the world for the future, as well as from the context that we gave at the beginning, and most importantly, the design challenge. How can we collaborate together to develop higher education initiatives really tackle the challenges of the 21st century? And it was very kind of you, Sebastian, to kind of give us this segue into how we can each support, because in the jury members, notably, but seeing all of you, many friends and colleagues in the conversation today, are coming from, whether it's the capacity building space, whether it's from student union, mass student union space, funding area, academic research area. And so we have this unique opportunity to bring together the insights from all of these spaces to really contribute and support and encourage more and more of these propositions and these solutions from our young people. What I will just suggest that we do is, firstly, for those that have just arrived over the course of the session in the last 30 minutes, Raven, I keep asking to add in links and has been so reactive to doing so, so thank you. We'll add in just the summary of the winning projects that you can explore, but also equally importantly, the link to all of the 70 or so final submissions, and that you can explore this over the course of the session. And we'll also be adding in the link again to the interest form for Planetizen University Co-Design, where you can add your ideas over the course and at the end of this session as well. What I just do for now is just suggest we take a 10-second pause, because this is an intense 2-hour session, so many ideas already, to take a moment just to look away from your screen and take in just a few breaths at your own pace or a stretch, and digest a little bit as well what we've just heard. Thanks, Francois, for doing a great example, which I shall follow. Super, there we go. So with that being said, and the question is added to the chat, I'd love to pass to you first, Jimmy from Arizona State University, also a member of the jury. You can share first your thoughts on this question and a bit more about your work.
Hey, thank you so much, Ed. So I'm Jimmy Choi. I'm joining you from New York City. As Ed said, I'm part of Arizona State University. But more importantly, for this context, I'm a friend of the Learning Planet Institute for a number of years. Francois, in homage to you and the time we had a chance to spend together, I want you to know that I took my 10 seconds doing some laughing yoga. Not only was I doing my stretches in terms of seated yoga, but I was doing that while laughing. I guess the thing I wanted to point out and encourage is that, you know, the one, being a member of the jury and having a chance to see all of the ideas just reminds me of the real multiplicity of excellence, the plurality of ideas that are available, and the opportunity that, if given the opportunity, people have so many things to contribute. And unfortunately, we've been living in a society, in a place, in a space where power is held by a few. Power for many things, power over resources, power over who gets to decide whose ideas are excellent, power over who gets to decide who is going to advance into quote unquote higher education versus those who have to make do. So the thing that I would encourage is that if we had a space and a place like what's being created here by the Learning Planet Institute, to not only encourage the ideas to come forward, but to think about how to resource them, how to connect with them, and how to amplify them. So as one example, when I'm looking over the top 3 prizes out of the hundreds of ideas that came in, and then over the 70 that we had a chance to quote unquote up-select from, even those 3 ideas together, if Jay were collaborating with Georgina, we're collaborating with Pearl, I mean, think about how much more powerful even that idea would be, right? So Jay, wonderful idea in terms of reinstating the importance of well-argued reason, well-argued logic, well-argued rhetoric. But how much more powerful would that be if we recognize both indigenous systems of knowing and indigenous rhetoric practices, in addition to, right, the classical rhetoric practices as well? So not only, for example, would those three ideas be even more strengthened by collaboration, but all the ideas that we had a chance to see, and each one of them, I kept finding myself thinking, oh, if this person were talking to that person, right, there would be even more strength. And it's not a 1 + 1, it turns into a 1 + exponential. So that's the thing that I would encourage. I love the projects platform that the Learning Planet Institute put together, because it gives you a chance to not only dive into those ideas, but hopefully connect with each other. And I would suggest this idea of what do you have to give and what do you have to offer? So maybe that's the call to action I would ask for all of us today, is to review those projects and say, what do we have to give and offer to help support that idea actually becoming concretized, as Stefania said before. Ideas are wonderful. It's really about the implementation and the action that can be created through that, and then the change and the outcomes that we're hoping to see. So that's my takeaway for today, is to see for all of those projects and ideas, what is it that I have to give and offer? And maybe I would encourage you to think about that as well, to help these projects come to life. So thank you for that. And thank you, Francois, for the laughing yoga. Everybody should do it.
I see a +100 at least, +200 in the chat for that last point as well, and for giving feedback. And completely agree. And certainly we don't want to actually be a bottleneck in this. And one of the ways that you can be immediately giving feedback is through the chat, but also do head on to the project space and create an account, leave comments. You can see that's possible to do so on the project page. Let's open this up, and the participants have chosen whether or not they want to share their email address to begin, but if they have, you can exchange with them there. And we can build out from doing this bottom up. So really encourage you to do that as well. And a point as well for those other contributors in the session today, it is quite an open, agile session. And we really want to encourage, if there's a point that's been shared that resonates with you at that point, do raise your hand, and then I'll go to you next. And we're kind of visualizing popcorn in this session today. So let's build on the ideas coming just before us. And as an example of that, I hope not to put you on the spot, Alexander, but as you were the last message also in the chat, it seemed to resonate with you. So maybe you could share what resonated in the presentations and how it connects to your work as well. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. And see, Claire is also in queue. My popcorn has popped. Absolutely. This is very inspiring. So let me just cover a couple of things that I see that are emerging here, kind of like effervescence, what seems to be coming to the surface in my view of what we have been holding here. And again, I'm Alexander Laszlo. I'm speaking to you from Buenos Aires, Argentina, and my area is in general systems theory and evolutionary systems design. So looking at this challenge of education for the 21st century, but really the Planetizen University, to me, all that we've been talking about comes down to just a couple of things: identity and belonging. Fundamental. What does it mean to be human in this interconnected, interdependent world? What is our identity as members of families, as members of society, as members of the human species, as members of life, as members of God? What is it? Identity. And then belonging. Where do we belong? Who are we? So these kind of questions in a Planetizen exploration helps us address issues and move them from the focus on fear and hope, which is kind of what has been emerging very much in these times. The focus on either waking up in the morning and being like, oh, today I'm hopeful, or waking up in the morning and being, oh, today I am very fearful because I've just been looking at the news or whatever. And switching that into this collective, this community, this way of learning together, which I think is really emphasized in this Planetizen orientation, to be both safe and brave. Not safe in the sense of not taking risks, but safe enough to be brave. And I think that's what I'm hearing from much of what people are talking about here. And this means a couple of shifts. It means moving away from the pathologizing of education, so that it's not about problematizing everything. Well, this is what we tend to think about here. And I know that, Jay, you were looking towards this kind of thing, but I also think that life is not a problem to be solved, and people are not problems to be fixed. So when we don't have an educational process that says we have to problematize everything, then we move away from a pathology of education and into a way of trying to experience and co-create living moments, right? So this is about humaning well. Again, identity and belonging, humaning well. And what does this mean? This means shifting from the educational frameworks of problem-based learning, even project-oriented learning, very strong movements, currently competency-based learning. No. I mean, what we're looking for is empathy-based learning, empathy-oriented learning. So we can empathize not just with other human beings, but with life, with the planet, with other beings. And I think for me, this comes to something that also about moving from the multidisciplinary to the interdisciplinary to the transdisciplinary frames. This is the systems view, but also to the post-disciplinary frames. And this is something that Dr. Shea Brown brings up. The post-disciplinary frames bring this beyond a Western holding, because disciplines are very Western. And the post-disciplinary holding allows for indigenous appreciations, indigenous learnings that don't fit into disciplinary categories. So I think it's very, very important. Just a few more things and I'm wrapped up. So part also from what Francois was saying at the very beginning, this kind of Planetizen orientation needs to be participatory, immersive, and experiential. And I think these are the things that we heard in all three of the finalists of the this beautiful exploration of what kind of educational system we can look towards. And to get to participatory, immersive, experiential learning, it means learning that is not just lifelong, right? So it's not just like, oh, got my degree, I'm done, which is the orientation of current universities. Get your degree, now you're a knower, now you're an authority, you're finished. But making it lifelong, but also life-wide. Life-wide meaning that you are learning anywhere where you are. You're learning in cities, you're learning in the country, you're learning in your family. This is life-wide learning. And this leads to life deep. Life deep learning is the learning that connects us to our identity, connects us to spirit, connects us to what is sacred. We have forgotten a lot of that in our educational processes. What is sacred? Do we bring that into the education? I think this is some of the things that Georgina was also referring to. And I think this is the pearls of wisdom as well that the perlitas. So this, I think then, well, that covers it. Now, one last thing here, perhaps, Ed, as I pass it back to you, is I'm wearing the shirt for today, and the shirt is personal vision, check. Shared vision, check. I think this is part of what we are seeking to explore. So thank you so much. We're doing it together. Back to you, Ed.
Thank you, Alexander. And just wanted to hold on what you mentioned at the end there on participatory and experiential as well. And just wanted to ask if Jeroo, at this point, if it's possible, to go to you, because I don't think it gets more participatory and experiential than in the work in the Catalyst community, and really on the ground active learning by doing through social entrepreneurship projects. So if it's possible for you to share what resonated for you from the participants presenting and how it connects to your vision of higher education for the future.
It's very interesting to hear the participants. And I love the passion and the energy in the room that has been said a few times. I love the out-of-box thinking. And I think that is something which is really, really important. And I do think the education for the future has to be there. People alluded to, but I didn't hear enough on systems change and really broad scale thinking outside the box. So I think that's something it would be nice if the participants could look at and see how that could happen. So there was a lot on values, ethics, issues, but honestly speaking, the system doesn't work. So how do we really break out existing systems? And I think currently we are still thinking a bit within the box of the current systems. So I think it would be, I loved what you all said. It was really good, But my one thing would be, please break free from our structures and just think about how do we actually do away with the university system to something, everything else. Yes, this is, Olivier, something that I'm looking at with Catalyst Academy, where we really are able to do it and how we are able to take it forward. How can we, do we need a university where we have to study? You know, can we have a university where we do and get a degree? Because there's so many people who are just better at doing and not studying. You know, over here, this group is really academic and brilliant. So we have the top of the top sharing with us. But where I live in the Netherlands, 60% of the people don't even do a technical education. And in India, that's also higher. So can we have a university for them also, where they are not struggling? So I think that's something that we need to really, really start thinking about, which is, and I would love to work with you all on a university which is different, which talks about the values, the ethics, the shifting mindsets, and all of that you've talked about, but for the bottom 1% who can barely finish school. So I think for me, let's try to co-create, using all your ideas, the university for the bottom 1% to the bottom 10%, who probably can't even get to high school, you know? So let's start thinking, and all of you are so creative. And we have all this fancy, many of you mentioned, AI, tech, everything. Can we just think out of the box for that? So I'm putting this challenge back to you, Olivier, Francois, to all our wonderful jury members. You know, can we just really go different and put it at that? Sorry to be like totally politically incorrect and not just say how fantastic, but also throw out a challenge.
Thank you,
back to you, Edward. Sorry.
No, Jeroo, because this is an excellent challenge back, because on my list again next. And I should just say thank you as well to participants who have raised their hand. Just to note, we'll go through some of the comments of the contributors and the speakers on the event page first, so you can hear from them, and then we'll try and have time at the end to rebound back to the questions. But the point that you were mentioning there, just about the 1%, it feels very fitting to bring in Mark as well, the co-president of Friendship. I presume, Olivier, that you were going to make that suggestion as well. Yeah. Friendship International and president of Friendship Luxembourg. Could you give an idea of what Jeroo was requesting for that 1%, of how this connects to friendship and where that resonates with what you've heard so far today?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to say to 1%. I think we have Friendship is working in areas where 15 years ago there was probably hardly any access to primary education. Now we have some students going to university, but having heard Jeroo speak, while of course we are very proud of that, we must not get drift from that, because those who have that chance are still a minute minority. And of course, the purpose is not to allow some from very disadvantaged areas to access higher education, but the ambition must be to bring the largest number, to allow them to get to that education which they need. Otherwise, what I hear here, what resonates very much to me, and our founder Huna has just traveled back to Bangladesh, therefore she is not here, but she would speak obviously much better than I can ever do. But values. We are in a sector, I mean, Friendship is basically a development organization. And so what one would say humanitarian. But one of my friends recently said, how much humanity is there in the humanitarian sector? How much are our actions really all deeply infused by values, and how much do we deeply stick to the values, even in a, let's call it a competitive landscape, as development organizations also experience it. And I think there we certainly have an ambition, not that we would consider that all that friendship does is perfect, but an ambition to show that you can build development on values, and that it is essential to stick to it, and of course, including on education, because in the areas where we work, for example, where access to education is already a challenge, but that must never mean that the only thing which you are going to do is to bring technical education there. Exactly to the opposite. You need to strengthen values in the street. You need to strengthen characters in order for people to be able to face all the challenges which they have in their life. So I think that's what I'm trying to say at this point.
I know Olivier's experienced this as well, visiting Bangladesh. Olivier, did you want to rebound back on that as well?
Very briefly, and I'll let you lead the rest, but it's true that when we visited it, I wanted to link with Jeroo, what Jeroo was saying, when we were in Bangladesh, in the north of Bangladesh, seeing the incredible work done by an NGO like Friendship in terms of resilience, environment, education, values, we are feeling with Gael and those who visited is that we should learn from the social entrepreneurs. We should learn from the communities and probably create programs based on the incredible expertise on resilience and addressing sustainable change, and that the new type of academy, university of what we're trying to do can also be extremely enriched from learning from these areas with some very practical aspects. And I think, Mark, I mean, to me, I've visited so many social entrepreneurs. The one as Friendship is so impressive. That's what an ongoing conversation together. And I wanted to highlight also this link that the production of knowledge can come from the underground communities, which is connected to the indigenous experience. Yeah. And I stop there and I let Ed lead again, but I see Rama.
Yeah, I would just say that from that perspective, of course, the first the prize winner, or here on the challenge about making indigenous knowledge, or now whether it's indigenous in the sense of Aborigines or just knowledge from the ground, from communities in the field whose voices are rarely ever heard, to build on that and to bring that out is, of course, it's core to what we are trying to achieve. And their corporations like with LTI, for example, I think have a big potential.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark. And I've made it a habit of putting Osaretin yourself on the spot, because we did it in the jury session yesterday too. But I thought it would be really fitting actually to have your thoughts on that, coming from 100% project-based, but with students across Africa. So being a part of the jury, one of your students getting in the finalists as well, maybe you can build on how, you know, in terms of this inclusivity aspect of caring and catering for these ideas for the youth and for young people that might not otherwise be having access. It'd be great to hear your perspective also, as well, from the well-being view too. If you can hear me.
Yes, hi. It's late evening, so I'm having to be inventive with my lighting. Excuse me, I seem to be emerging from the darkness.
Very ethereal.
Thank you. Sorry, so could you give me the question again?
Yes. So I mean, we're having this talk and bringing it down to the concrete, and thank you, Jeroo, as well for pitching that on the education for the 1%, and that with Mark we were hearing as well too, and from Olivier, how this connects into the roots of the local communities through which a lot of these students are serving. And it seemed to really fit and connect to your work with LU that we've also learned via Georgina as well, and several other participants. So maybe you could share your reactions on the challenge and on that point of how these students can connect into their local community and really the inclusion around that too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So previously, say the past, I don't know, 200 years, the academia has been seen as esoteric. It's always been this huge thing that a few people could aspire to, and some people could dream of, and some people are lucky if they could advance into it. And but with challenges like this, and with reimagining education, and to Pearl's idea of democratizing indigenous thinking, it's beautiful how education isn't. We are able to see education in everything, and not just and we are rethinking what the academy is. And I think that is essentially what well-being is. It's being able to position ourselves within. We're able to position ourselves within community and find validation in that. Position ourselves within the world, and found validation in how authentic that is. And within my that's so sweet, thank you. And I think it's within the work that I see that our finalists have done. We are able to see those emerging themes in there, and I think it's beautiful that this is where we are moving in the world, and this is how we are rethinking education. And so within ALU as well, it is sort of the work that we do. I was talking yesterday about how we are, about the missions that our students write, and our students drive. And it's exciting to see that across continents, we have the same patterns of thinking, and we are birthing this academy of the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Osaretin. And it's kind of bringing together a few of the different threads that have been coming up so far. We heard this call for how we can encourage and support the collaboration, as you mentioned, Jimmy. And indeed, what was so heartening is that for a number of the participants who responded back to the feedback they received, one of the first things they said was, amazing to see the quality and the inspiration from the other participants. So that was a key theme that came up. Alex mentioning participatory as well and experiential. We then have been looking at this, bringing down and supporting that 1% and ensuring that it's rooted in the local communities too. I think it would be great to hear from you next, Michael Backlund from ClimateScience, because I think that gives a good perspective on connecting that local community experiential, but then really making this, making the local global as well, through a different form of challenge too. So you could share more about that.
Gladly. I think I'm a firm believer that education is about taking things out rather than putting things in, as opposed to teaching. And I think what our standardized education system is, about, and what we do in ClimateScience is we try to provide, bridge the gap between complex science and actionable points of what people could take and, do about climate change. And we try to do, try to merge the reliability and the easy to understand aspect of education. And the theory of change behind this thing is that anyone can go and they can learn at their own pace what they're interested in, and then go from the education, bring the knowledge to the real world. And I think an institution that really is successful is not one that puts things into people's minds by compulsion, but by curiosity. Now, practically, how is this achieved? I really think there's two different ways to learn. One is for theory and the other one is for practice. Right now, most of the learning that we have and most of the education that we have in the world is simply, just from theory. We don't have too much from practice. And that was one of the first things that, made me fall in love with the Learning Planet Institute, because they had this idea of you can also learn from practice, and you could potentially, what if we could accredit that? The other side of the coin of education that
usually bring us quite a lot of development, but is not recognized by traditional means at all. But if it would be, how much could those things be accelerated? Now, although I'm a big fan of practice and I fall more to the second bracket, I also think it's important that whatever system is going to happen in the future is also not going to compulse practice on people that are similar to how theory is sort of put on people that are more practical or want to learn from practice or from trying things. I think it's also important that if we find a way to accredit practice and that becomes a mainstream practice or mainstream thing, we don't compulse that on people who love theory. Really, I think this ties back to my original point, which is education is about taking things out of people, things that people already knew, curiosity driven, intrinsic motivation driven, letting people just do what they want and what they have an internal drive towards, and just provide resources on top of it. And it goes both ways.
Thank you, Mika. I think that gives a great context. I'd encourage you to check as well the ClimateScience approach as well to bringing together these solutions and these ideas globally, but also staying rooted in the knowledge that they're building too. And I again encouraging to put on the spot, but Mathieu Denis from the International Science Council, I'd be really keen to hear from you here as well, connecting into climate science. What comes up for you, having seen these presentations and these ideas for new learning programs, and how does it fit for you in the context of the work with the AIESEC?
Thank you very much for this, Edward. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for these presentations, all of it, and the enthusiasm and the commitment that we're seeing and hearing from this group. This is very good. I was just trying to figure out how we can best support, as International Science Council, how we can best support all of these effort, all of that energy. Now, I'm not going to give you the International Science Council 101, so to speak. I don't assume that you know what we're doing necessarily, but let me just maybe preface my comments by saying that we are a federation. We are the world's largest federation of science organizations. And so we bring together the world of academies of sciences, the research councils, as well as the disciplinary organization representing the interests of disciplines at the global level. We do a lot of work with the multilateral system, for example, convening interdisciplinary expertise for specific policy processes. That's as much as I will say, but it gives you a sense of where I'm talking from and how I'm approaching this discussion. The first thing I want to say, and I'll try to stick to the 2-3 minutes that as you've suggested we do, Edward. The first thing I want to say is I want to go back to what Francois said right at the beginning, namely that he feels universities are not, well, he feels universities are not delivering what today's children want, or the youth of today, what they want. I would add to this that to a very large extent, universities are not necessarily delivering the knowledge we need either. The knowledge we need to address the civilizational, the planetary challenges that we need as global society need to address. And I think, and it's not being provocative to say that, because I think that there are more and more universities who acknowledge that even if you take a standard and mainstream agenda, mainstream like the SDGs, mainstream in the sense that it is broadly recognized as an agenda that is worth delivering on, is actually necessary to deliver on. Even if you take the SDGs, there are a lot of universities in the world recognizing that they are not delivering the kind of knowledge that societies expect them to deliver, so that they can, so that societies can achieve the SDGs. And I'm thinking of universities, in the Pacific, in Latin America, in Africa, in Europe. So this is the first thing that I want to say is that we're not alone. There is a sense, it's not general, it's not a general sense, but there is a reasonably broad sense that we do need to rethink the way universities work and how they contribute solving the biggest problems of our time. I am personally very, very convinced of the value of rethinking. I think it was Alexander who talked about lifelong learning, rethinking the ways in which universities promote and advance lifelong learning, and the kind of model that we are discussing here and could actually inspire a lot of great initiatives. What we're talking about potentially is a university that accompanies people, all sorts of people, not just those students, all people throughout their lives, and offers them with the kind of knowledge they need to learn at a given moment, at a specific moment of their life course. The kind of knowledge, the kind of skills, the kind of competencies, the kind of values. There's a lot of talk today around values. But that offers that at the moment when it is necessary for people to acquire those or develop those. For me, this is a new way of thinking about lifelong learning, which I find very, very interesting, relevant, and promising. It is offering potentially a new role for universities. Universities, it would be much more open. We were talking about how do we open the doors of universities to people who actually do not have what it takes to go there and study. Doesn't mean that they should not have access to the main knowledge institution that our societies have given themselves, which are universities, simply because they have not finished high school, for example. And so I really like that idea of rethinking universities, their role in society, and opening up their doors to people when they need to acquire specific skills. No barrier at entrance, and a full recognition, which is not something we've talked about here, but is completely intrinsic in the Planetizen model that we're discussing today, with the full recognition of competences and knowledge that has been acquired outside of academia, but can actually become very relevant for the programs that such universities could deliver. So all of that I find very important, and I would like to continue thinking with all of you how we can develop such models for a new university. I like the idea of co-creating this with the stakeholders, current and future stakeholders. And my sense of what we can very pragmatically now do together is to bring this conversation in other arenas. I'm immediately thinking of a summit that I'm part of called the Digital with Purpose Summit, where I think we could have a lot of events similar to this in Cascais in Portugal in the summer, but there are others as well. And so I'm just signaling my willingness to continue thinking with you and bring these discussions in other fora as well with stakeholders such as World Academies, Young Academies, for example. I think might be particularly open to this, but also private sector developing digital education tools. They also need to hear about this, so that we also influence them in the way in the work they're doing. These are Edward, colleagues. These are my thoughts at this stage. I hope this is useful.
Well, certainly incredibly useful, both I think to the audience of the subject, but to me as a moderator, because you've teased out, I think, some of the really other key elements, as you mentioned, had not yet been referred to, but have come across in a lot of the co-design workshops that we've been having as well. In the first one, to pick on your point on equipping the new role for universities, I think one of the key phrases that came out of our first series of workshops was open campus. And everyone had a slightly different definition for an open campus, but it was really breaking down and connecting to breaking down the walls of a university space. And there were some very, very practical suggestions for doing that as well. And indeed, we'll maybe pass it in a second to Rama. Will be able to talk a little bit more about how that connects to One Home for Humanity. On that point as well, on accompanying knowledge throughout the lives, and particularly the scientist's role in this as well. I know that Stephen Friend, the director of the Scientific Advisory Board at LPI, and many other roles as well. I know that you would want to rebound on this point too.
Yeah, I'm going to try purposely to go off a little bit on a tangent and come up with a challenge to all. Today, don't think it needs to be restated how at the edge, thoughtful, precious, the ideas that were brought forward reminded me of something that you've probably all heard before from Nelson Mandela about it always seems impossible until it's done. And I think that the dreams towards what is could be the courses are just blooming in a really beautiful way. The challenge I want to offer is that to do those, of all sorts, resources will be needed, right? So to act on even a small fraction of the 70 or the 3 or whatever, they aren't going to just magically come about. And it's going to be resources in terms of expertise, it's going to be resources in connections, resources in other ways. And the same way as the ideas towards the courses and towards the university have been driven and need to, in fact, the only way it'll happen is when they're co-constructed by youth. I think we need to invite the youth and those who are on this call to help us co-construct the resources. So the challenge that's there is for every project, for every theme we're talking about, if there are not resources that allow us to act on them, they're beautiful in the virtual space, but not in the being able to heal the planet. That's all.
Well, you guys, and that's one point. Is there a second point as well, or you've kept on a very concise tangent? Thanks, Stephen.
No, I wanted to bring in this powerful group of people and ideas and thoughtfulness, and let's use our imaginations on how it is that such things like a Planetizen University, how can we fund a Planetizen University? And I mean fund not in terms of dollars, I mean all the things that it takes to act on these. And it's great to find efficiencies, but you also need to find resources with those efficiencies.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And incidentally, and Raven, if you can add into the chat again on the interest form, there are a series of different ways that people can stress interest in being involved in this project. One of the questions was support in funding initiatives, but it was implicit in that as well that that's not just financially. That's that's resource capacity building as well, and we really encourage you in that form to be imaginative in thinking and stretching the possibilities of your works in education across the domain, and see where might be the ways in which you might want to contribute or engage in this new kind of initiative of thinking beyond the conventional university. So thank you for the call for that, Stephen, and putting back again on some of the points as well that's come up a number of times on accessible, on recognizing these competencies, on connecting really into local communities, but connecting that to the global level. I'd love to group, if possible, Rama for particularly that part on the traveling university and engaging the community, and then if possible Jack afterwards, because that piece on intergenerational is so key and relevant to the growth and development of AIME and imagination. But Rama and Alexander, if you're with as well first, we'd love to hear from you.
Great, thank you. Well, of course, as it goes on, the list of things one wants to respond to and be excited about grows. First, I just wanted to start off by saying that, I literally want to just jump into the screen and embrace and congratulate all the 70 who took part in this challenge, because it has been just such an overwhelming joy, just seeing those project pages and then diving into them and getting to know them. And I can see Asli, you're, shaking your, nodding your head. It's just all of this is joy. And seeing how unique each one was, but also the common threads that came through. And then it's been beautiful seeing how these threads are being woven by everyone who's spoken in response to your question of how do we build on this and what came out of the youth talks. But coming to a few of the things that the youth challenge participants, the common threads, what came through really was this passion about unity and yet appreciating the diversity. It was all about humanity, but recognizing that we are part of all of life, how much creativity and art and storytelling and all of that part came out. So it was really beautiful. And at the same time, the big word that Professor Giannini used yesterday in her conversation with Francois about let's not forget inclusion, which was what Jeroo was talking about. So the few things that really stand out, which come as a thread from the youth talks, the brilliant challenges, and what every single one of the wonderful collaborators here has said so far, starting from the beginning, that both creating the university of the future, creating the Planetizen University has to be collaborative. And like just 1 second, I'm just Jimmy Choi, like you said, I mean, just how much we can learn if the learning is together. So that really made me think about in the One Home University, which we are thrilled to be co-creating collaboratively with Planetizen University, with all of our partners, global partners and very local Home for Humanity partners around the world, that what we are thrilled about is that this idea of you can't learn alone, you can't co-create alone. So the power of 7, how can we use these next 7 years? Jeroo, you're talking about, Catalyst 2030, the 2030 goals. If every single individual was finding their ikigai, your favorite word, Ed, right? And Francois, finding your purpose, your passion, your potential, but doing so not just for yourself, but how can that passion be fulfilled and that potential be fulfilled in service to your community and to the earth of which we are a part, to find ourselves at home at last. Because what came through very much, especially in the youth talks, is how young people are just not feeling at home anymore, So what we bring to the conversation with the One Home University is, like Planetizen, how can young people, all of us, begin once more to feel at home in our home earth, inside ourselves, because that came through so much in the challenge and it came through so much in the youth talks, right? How can we find ourselves, but not in a way that makes us ostriches, but in a way that we can then use that ikigai to serve our communities. So many of the challenges, especially from Africa and so on, we're talking about India and but how can we help those who are the most marginalized? So really what we love is how so much of what came out resonates with what we are looking to co-create with all of you, with Planetizens, with the Youth for Youth who are part of this festival and are going to be having 3 days of festivals coming up, is how can we really be at home in our inner homes? How can young people, especially who are feeling lost and fearful, feel at home in their inner homes, to identify their purpose and passion, to then build local homes, to make each of their local homes, communities, each of these initiatives can be a place for belonging, Alexander dear, your wonderful word, and then to really make our planet once more a home for all of us to build. And if we put all our visions and purposes together, the exponential impact we can have around these 7 years. And what we are doing with the One Home University is literally so many people, like our winner, Pearl, spoke about the importance of indigenous knowledge, spoke about wanting to know about all the cultures in the world. So we will actually be going from country to all the 195 plus countries on Earth, where we learn both about the ancient indigenous knowledge and culture of each country, the ecological resilience, both the challenges, but not just the problems, but the resilience and innovation. And Olivier, your point, to learn about the innovations, especially in countries of crisis. The innovations which we are seeing with all of our Home for Humanity partners. So we learn both to cherish the old, to learn from the new, and we co-create in our communities as well as across every border, so that we really can be, exponentially accelerating what we can do for our Earth in this time. I hope that answers to some of the points, but I was just so struck by what practically everyone has said so far and how resonant that is. Very excited about the Planetizen University and this collaborative flow that is coming through. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rama. And if you want to see university in action, Paulina, one of the youth members, did a great proposition learning program for the challenge, and I'm sure she can put it into the chat as well for you to explore further. And this connecting as well to, and a lot of these initiatives and what's been sharing is where the intergenerational voice and voices come in interaction, both and very tangibly in the learning design, in the conception of new forms of education, and that obviously lends itself to what we've been talking on the open campus. Jack, my friend, I think it goes back to the very beginning of AIME, so maybe you can build a little bit more on that thread too.
Yeah, awesome. I'm sitting near a sprinkler at a beach at like 2:30 in the morning, so the sprinkler's slowly moving towards the car. So if I get wet, maybe that's some big sign that there's big rain coming for all of us. I am literally going to get wet by the sprinkler. I'm going to put my windows up. Yep, that's live television. And, so I think there's a couple of beats which I was sort of really, really, have you got me there?
Yeah, all good.
Sweet. Yeah, kind of feeling and seeing in the design elements and the opportunity. The first one was like, when we obsess with designing, we miss what's in front of us. And I think we really have to, like in the giving, we really have to be able to receive as well what's around. Like this is a wonderful gathering that you guys are curating, and to be able to receive that and not go and create another Learning Planet Festival is very important for us to not waste our limited resources. So I'll say as a gift from our end, we spent 20 years working on inequity and trying to work out how to hack a number of the design challenges, and the work we've done is born from Indigenous
Recording
systems.
stopped.
Building out different frameworks. Myself, I'm Aboriginal and come from the Bundjalung Nation, and we got a word jalne, which is about the reflection of the fire and the energy around the fire. And I think about that preciousness of that energy of what's happening in a moment like this. And over the 20 years, we've built this digital country for the world called Imagination to serve a number of the wishes and dreams that everyone's got here. We've got an economy in there. We've got Indigenous systems webbed into it. We've built an accreditation pathway. We've built passports. We've built a meeting place and jobs board for trade. We've built service learning. We've built action visas. We've built systems change studios. We've got a tool shed with virtual production to create films and books. We've built all this stuff, and I want to gift it to you. Like, you know, we built it for us, for all of us to play. So that's the first one. That's there as a offer. If that feeds as a platform for the Planetary University, for anyone else's work there, please take it. Let's work together. And in that moment, no, there's no hidden agenda. We're trying to kill imagination 10 years from now. So this is like not here for the glory. It's to build and to get off the stage and to move it, which is the second part. Like, the Planetary Uni is already here. Like, this is the Planetary Uni. And I think that's the crazy part. Like, we get trapped in endless tech design as the next build, or we get trapped in endless like work around, you know, how do you get accreditation, or how do you get the authority, or how do you, like, the work is in the nodes in the network and plugging together this ecosystem. And Dunbar's number around 150, I reckon, is the best for design work. So we've been working really deeply on that number, weaving it with Indigenous systems thinking, and just thinking about that number of 150 and tending the custodians and looking after 150 relations you can go really deeply with, and really spend the time to look after those nodes in the network and go diagonal, which a number of people have worked on. And, you know, you pattern and you hatch together the thinking that's already here. You have yourself a Planetary University, and how do you fund it? I think is the last part of it. It's just, it either leads to jobs or it leads to the movement of money to create a support for people to do this body of work to look after the planet. And so they're two pathways, but capital has to move to be able to value the reputational outcomes of what comes from the accreditation, and then you got yourself a ball game. So yeah, happy to help wherever we can, and I'm stoked that I didn't get too wet from the strange sprinkler.
Thanks for being a martyr for this session, Jack, and yeah, for I'm hoping you're having a refreshing shower up in space as well. It is a great call, and I mean, indeed, like the point of generosity of just sharing and giving resources, and goes back to what you mentioned, Stephen. We can fund in many ways, and one of the ways is fund through resource and knowledge and mentoring and support in that kind of instance too. And that's what we've tried to think about in bringing together these contributors is the different ways that people can fund and give insight. Some of the contributors here are on incredibly high resource initiatives doing highly innovative work, academic work, research work. Others are from the social entrepreneurship space and are really finding ways of navigating with a much lower resources financially, but with a real capacity to share and to mentor. And Alysha, to bring it back as well to one of our young members of the jury, I think AIESEC is kind of an epitome of this. So maybe you can share and connect back to your time on the jury and to the participants, while also keeping in mind how AIESEC does this on a week-to-week basis.
For sure. Thanks, Ed. Just for some context, hi, everyone. My name is Alysha, and I'm a representative from AIESEC International. AIESEC is the world's largest youth-led nonprofit organization, and we specialize in youth leadership development. I really loved this conversation. I loved also the presentations we got from the jury. I think it's been very fruitful. One thing that's really stood out to me when it comes to like a Planetizen University is definitely the need for experiential learning and the importance of civil society when it comes to bringing that. Because when we look at a university that solely focuses on that practical experience, sometimes it can seem a bit aloof and very far away. And a lot of the times an immediate solution can actually be just integrating civil society organizations that already exist, that can amplify projects like the ones we've seen today, and integrate them into educational systems. So in AIESEC, we do a lot of volunteering for different projects, and we partner with NGOs and different entrepreneurs to see how we can put youth into different roles, give them responsibilities, give them opportunities to learn, and allow them to uplift those NGOs and those projects. So overall, I think there's a lot of value when it comes to also just connecting youth with other youth-led initiatives or with youth-focused initiatives. So definitely with the finalists and even with the 20 top and the 70 applicants that were able to submit their applications, I'd love to connect you with different communities like AIESEC and different global hubs, as well as national community hubs, as well as global shapers. I think that could also be a really cool opportunity. But yeah, just honing in on the importance of civil society and the value it can bring to educational systems. I think it's really important to this conversation. I'll hand it on over back to you, Ed.
Thank you very much, Alysha. And if I invite as well, Asli, do you want to build on that too, from Cambridge?
Sure. Then I should introduce myself as well. So I work for Cambridge University Press and Assessment, and it is a part of the Cambridge University, of course, and there is a lot of work done on various parts of the organization, really. In terms of publishing, we've got a lot of research arm, and there's a lot of books and journals and academic reach on that side. And we have an arm called Cambridge Partnership for Education, which does a lot of the work with the ministries and governments to basically do educational initiatives, which I think the link with the Planetizen University comes from there. And it was fascinating to listen to all what's been said, and we talked about the systems change, and again, it is, yes, the curriculums of the universities needs to be different, and it needs an overhaul. It requires for youth to come in and be in partnership with, but I guess the issue is more of an access issue rather than should we be having universities, but how do we make them more accessible? To Jeroo's earlier point about how do we reach that 1%, 10%, or how do we even reach people earlier than that so that they end up in universities? And I think that is a big question. And yes, I work in digital learning, and therefore I am likely to say everything resolves with having digital learning because it makes everything more accessible, but that's not the only way to do it. And I think looking at all the ideas today and listening to them, yes, there is a lot of perhaps outreach that needs to happen. There are a lot more initiatives that needs to be run. But I guess sort of my thought was around, yes, that these are all very valuable and great, and we need more of these, but how do we create that systematic break? And that is a two ways of looking at it. Either you keep doing the initiatives and keep reaching out, and at some point, as they said in the COVID days, it will reach a critical mass and we're going to get herd immunity and we're going to fix everything, or we're going to have to revolutionize something. So again, my personal view, I'm one of those people who believe in incremental change, and that's what we need to do. We just need to have more initiatives, more outreach, and more bringing various views onto the table. And one day it will reach that critical mass, hopefully in the next 7 years, and it will turn the tide.
Thank you so much, Asli, as well, and for grounding us back into thinking of incremental change. And I think we're viewing the upcoming steps of this session and of the design challenge and building new forms of a university in an incremental way as well. I'm going to make a little bit of novel suggestion here that we've had so many different speakers, and I wanted to suggest, if I'll give the final word to Pavel, because it connects directly into the next session that we have directly coming up on Peaceful Futures. And then we'll try and finish 5 minutes early. And if you can use that 5 minutes extra of your calendar, obviously to stretch, etc., but also to have a look at the form, the interest form. If Raven, you can put it in the chat again, and take that 5 minutes actually that you have to have a little bit of a think on where might be the areas in which you might be interested to contribute with no binding obligation at all, of course. And then we're really going to be using and digesting this in the coming weeks post the festival. So with that being said, if I can pass to Pavel to take us into how this connects into Peaceful Futures, which will be the upcoming session, that'd be great.
Thank you for this opportunity, Ed. And first of all, I want to say this is such a rich space, and I feel like I'm stepping out of it very nourished. I feel there's so many ideas that just wait to be implemented, like seeds ripe to get into the soil, and they're waiting to get into the soil. That's my feeling when I listen to everyone's talking in this space today. And I want to bring two words that come to my mind when I listen to all these conversations. I think the word university on one hand conveys what we dream about, but it also doesn't really properly convey it, because the form that we observe here is more than a university. It's not a single organization. I think it's a movement rather than a single organization. And as a movement, it potentially can take a form that would involve many different players, creating their own versions of Planetizen universities in different parts of the world in connection, in collaboration with each other. So as a movement, these different initiatives could start growing into what we can see as a global learning ecosystem for human and planetary flourishing. And I think this is what we actually are talking about. When we talk about Planetizen University or planetary university, we are creating more than just a university. We're creating a nourishing space, a kind of grass bed, or some kind of bedding for seeds to ripe. And if we can really properly do it, recognizing that this challenge was a micro model, like Jack exactly said it already, we are already here. Everything is already here. The university, the Planetizen University is already here with all the ideas. If we just can amplify that potential of youth, and segue into the next session, we are going to talk about specific dimension of that, youth that can contribute to peaceful futures. And peaceful futures is a necessary part of regenerative, thriving futures for all. If we can create space, if we can attract resources, if we can create support, activate global hubs around the globe that will bring this into life, then I think our mission in making that transition will be much closer to be accomplished. thank you everyone for this opportunity to listen, to be nourished, and to see how we can move into the next step. And yes, please join in 7 minutes from now in the session on peaceful futures, where we will explore some of these dimensions.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Pavel. I've just included the link into the chat as well, so that you can jump on into that. The Zoom link should have been added directly on the page itself. And yeah, as promised, we will give a few minutes extra into your day. And so I'll add into the chat as well, again, just the form for sharing your interest, your ideas, your contributions, particularly for those of you that didn't get a chance to speak in this session. That will be a really key space to share all your digests, and we'll be taking real time afterwards to have a little bit of a think in gathering some of these ideas, resources, and thoughts too. Thanks to all the contributors for your thoughts. Thanks particularly to the jury as well for taking the time, particularly at short notice at the end of the year, to join on board this journey and take us through all these applications. And then the last thank you, of course, to our over 70 really genuinely amazing. I say amazing too much, but it's sincere in this case. Applications and submissions for dream learning programs for engaged, flourishing, sustainable universities from students around the world that we're looking to build, support, and nourish into 2024. Hope you have a fantastic rest of the festival, and we look forward to seeing you in upcoming sessions this week. Thank you very much, everybody.
Geez, your hosting is good, Ed.